everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how I gave myself this shaggy layered haircut. This video won't be explaining how to cut the length of your hair. I have to get my hair cut by someone else because I find it really impossible to cut a straight line at the back of my head that I can't see because it's too short at the moment for me to be able to bring it forward, so I get my bob cut by somebody else. But I am just going to show you how I gave myself layers. I've got a detailed video showing how I gave myself this daisy fringe as well, or curtain bangs, if you want to check that out, because I didn't go into loads of detail in this video. The video is kind of going to be done in two parts because I filmed them slightly differently. So the first part is going to be like a side by side while I'm doing the front, like the face framing layering part, and I'll explain what I'm doing. And then when it comes to doing the back of my head, I'm just going to do a standard voiceover. But yeah, hopefully you find it helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments and I'll try and answer them all for you. But yeah, let's just get straight into the haircut. Okay, so I'm just going to do like a little side by side of me explaining exactly what I'm doing in the haircut because I didn't really do that. Yeah, so the first thing that you want to do is you're going to cut your hair, you're going to part your hair down the middle, and then you're going to section from the end of your parting to behind your ears. Everyone's parting is different. Some people have like a really short parting and then all of this hair here they wear backwards, and some people's parting goes all the way back to like their crown, and this part of their hair here always parts, and that's like there's nothing they can do about it, otherwise they're having to like blow dry it all the time, but naturally day to day it parts really low back. All of that is really important because you want to really consider where your hair actually sits day to day. Me saying that my parting ends right in between like my ears isn't helpful because your parting might not do that. So the first thing to do is figure out where your parting naturally ends, and that's going to be the point at which you consider the front of your head, and the rest is going to be considered the back of your head because that's where your hair's actually going to sit. And then you want to just bring that down to behind your ears, or like on top of your ears, behind your ears, the ear region. As long as it's the same on both sides, it's going to be like symmetrical. The first thing that I did is for my face layering at the front, the first thing that I did is I just blow dried my hair, so it's like very fluffy right now. Once you've got middle parting, the first step is actually to take a triangle here, so one section and then another section, and pull that down and decide how short you're going to cut that first layer, and this is kind of going to determine the rest of the haircut. So for me, I've got a daisy fringe, curtain bangs. I always call it daisy fringe, I don't know where I got that from. Yeah, because my fringe is so short, obviously mine starts here. If you don't have a daisy fringe, I've got a full length video showing how I cut my daisy fringe if you want to find out how I did that, because it's very, very similar, but there's just like a few extra steps to make it like nice and feathered, and like it will tell you exactly how to decide the length that you want and like the angle and all of that sort of stuff. So maybe watch that video first if you're going to go for a fringe as well as this cut. But for the rest of the layered haircut, I would recommend starting at about at least below the lip, but kind of like jaw length. So that would be step number one, would be to take this section of hair, pull it down to your jaw and cut it in a straight line. Then what you're going to do once you've got that, so I'm going to have to use my fringe as an example. Once you've cut that in a straight line, then you're going to split it in half, again, like part it down the middle. And now, based on the angle, okay, this is not very good parting, but it's just a demonstration, okay? Based on the angle of this parting, you're going to pull the hair out parallel to that angle, and you're just going to cut it in a straight line. It should be like a little bit too long here, and you're going to cut it on an angle so that it matches that parallel line, and that's what's going to give you the graduation, because you want it to be shorter from this side and then slowly get longer. So you want to bring it over. The angle of the triangle that you take is really important because, for example, if you took a really narrow triangle like this, when I say narrow I mean like flat, I don't really know how to describe this, I never know what to say here. If this was the angle that you took of the triangle and then you followed that parallel down and you cut it in a straight line, you've basically just got like a straight fringe. Like it won't be very like sweeping and it won't go from short to long. So if you make the triangle really steep, like this, and you cut it on this angle, you would be cutting a lot more hair, so then it would be like really, really feathered and it would dramatically go from very short to very long. So you just want like a nice in-between triangular angle. And the reason that you're going to start with a triangle rather than just starting on a diagonal is because then if you've got a triangle here, you can really take time to make sure that the angles that you've taken are very, very symmetrical. And that means it's literally like a guide for your whole haircut. So once you've got that part sorted, if you've got those two triangles and they're perfectly the same length, the same angle, and then you pull down that first piece of hair and you cut it in a straight line, those two hairs are going to be exactly the same length. Now if you follow that angle really, really parallel to the parting, you split it in half again, so you take your middle parting again, then you take this one little section and you're really parallel to the parting, you come down to the point where you can't go any further because otherwise hair's going to start falling out, and then you cut that diagonal just to remove the little corner. It will make sense once you're doing it. Remove that little corner, and then you do the same thing on the other side. Those two sides are technically going to be completely symmetrical. Like, as long as you've taken time to make sure that your sections are really, really neat, they're the same size, same angle, you're pulling it parallel, they just will be symmetrical. And then every section that you take from then on, you're just going to be taking a section, like one section back at a time, and slowly incorporating more hair until you get all the way to the back and you're pulling as much hair forward as possible. If you've got a fringe like me, what I did was I did my little fringe, whatever, but then when I took the next section back, I took that piece longer, and then you would want to do the straight line again, cutting it like so that you've got the symmetry, and then just start again, right? And then from there, from the actual guide, which is going to be the guide for all of the layers for your whole haircut, you're just going to follow the angle as neatly as you can. Like, you want the angle to be the same. It's really, really important. Bring everything parallel to the parting and just cut it in a straight line. If you do that on the other side, it's like a very foolproof plan, which is why it's like what I usually do on myself and what I usually do if I'm trying to show other people how to do their own hair, because it's like there's such a clear guideline for how you can do it that it leaves little room for error, as long as you're neat enough with your sections and you just take enough time to make sure that you're really trying to be careful. Then I just did obviously the exact same thing on the other side. When it comes to doing the back of your head, when it comes to doing the back of this section and you're bringing in like as much hair as you possibly can, just from your ears to the end of your parting, you shouldn't be able, like, the hair shouldn't really come in that much. Like, the hair that you're pulling over, it should kind of be like the same length as your hair by that point, and you'll find that there isn't too much to cut off, which is like a reassuring feeling, because you're like, okay, cool, the haircut's all balanced. Then you do it on the other side and it's the same, and then you know that your haircut's pretty much matching. Then as a final little step, I just took a little slice here, and then I brushed that hair straight upwards like this. I'm gonna bend down like that, and I cut that in a straight line, but I brought it down here and then I cut it, but I am actually cutting that in a very straight line, and I did the same thing on this side, and that's just going to give me like a very, very feathery, wispy look. Like, it's just a very dramatic way to do a layer, and I was going for heavy layers, so that's what I did there. But yeah, and then that's basically it, and then I moved on to the back of my head. Okay, when it comes to doing the back of your head, the point at which I mentioned where your parting ends, you want to imagine that there's like a pin in that part of your head, and all of the sections that you take at the back of your head are going to pivot from that one point at the back of your parting. Let's call that the middle of your head. And then what I like to do is I take vertical slices down the back of my head, starting at that point, and then kind of in like a bit of a triangular shape, getting wider towards the nape of my neck. And because I'm pivoting, the first one goes towards the nape of my neck, and then the one slightly beside it kind of goes to like in between my neck and my ear, and then the third one along goes from the point on the top of my head kind of like to my ears, sort of. And I think 5 sections is usually good. You might need to do 7, so 1 in the middle and then 3 either side if your hair's really, really thick, or if you want to be really careful with your sectioning. But I'm just going to do 5. I've made some like weird little diagram which isn't that good, but I'm just going to keep them at the side of the screen the whole time, and hopefully like it will make sense what I'm saying. So then you've got 5 slices at the back of your head, 5 vertical slices I'm going to call them. Now if you imagine that of each of these vertical slices, I'm going to split each slice into 3 sections. So it's going to be the top section, the middle section, and the bottom section. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to give myself a round layer at the back, and I want the layers to be quite dramatic. So the top layer of my slice, I'm going to pull out vertical to the top of my head. So it's going to be quite a steep, high angle, and then I'm going to cut my first section there. Then the middle section of my head, I'm going to pull out, again, parallel to my head shape. So it's going to come out on a more like, I don't know, straight out, directly back angle. And then I'm going to cut it there. And then the bottom section, I'm going to pull out kind of downwards. I'm not really explaining this well, but I'm hoping that my visual aids are really coming through here because I can't speak. And then I'm going to cut that there. So by the end of it, I'm going to have like a curved layer that's sitting round. And when I drop it, when I drop all the hair back down, there shouldn't be any weird chunky pieces. Because it's really hard for me to obviously pull hair out to the back of my head on this angle and somehow manage to get like scissors there and cut it backwards. That's just like not possible. The first slice that I took in the middle of my head, I over-directed it all to one side, and I first of all cut it like on that, I first of all cut it still at the right angle, but I just pulled it to one side so that I could see what I was doing. And then the same for the middle section and the bottom section, I pulled it all to one side. And then just to make sure that it was completely symmetrical, I then flipped it over to the other side, pulled it out, and I did the same thing because there were just a few straggly bits. If you can imagine, like one side would be slightly longer because I've over-directed it. So then I just undid that by pulling it over-directing it to the other side and then cutting it again there. That's how I approached the middle section at the back of my head, which is going to serve as the guide for the whole haircut, so it is quite an important section. Okay, so once I'm happy with that section, I'm going to split it directly down the middle, and then either side of that vertical slice are going to serve as the guide for the slice directly behind it, just to make sure that all of my layers the whole way around the head are exactly the same length. So now I'm taking another vertical slice, incorporating slightly more hair, and I'm just clipping that hair out of the way to make sure that my sections stay really neat and tidy, because it can be easy to get kind of confused. And then I'm just going, so there's my first section that I'm pulling up there now, vertical to the head, and I'm matching it to the length of the slice from the middle, like the first slice that I did. Then I'm pulling out the middle section, and again I'm going to match that to the previous length. And then I'm pulling out the third bottom section, and again I'm just matching that all to the length of the previous slice. Then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing again. So now once I'm happy with that, I'll split that directly down the middle, split it in half, and then I'm going to incorporate that half into the next vertical section along. So I hope it's starting to become more clear now what I mean by pivoting around the head. So it looks like I've actually taken 7 sections at the back, not 5. I think for most people 5 would be okay. I'd say my hair is on the thick side, so 7 is, I guess, safer. I thought I took 5, but it looks like I've taken 7. But yeah, you might not need to do that. You might need to do that. You can kind of just see how it feels. You don't want to be picking up too much hair, because basically you just want it to be clear and obvious what you're doing. You want to be able to see your guide clearly, and you don't want to get overwhelmed with like hair falling out of your hands. Just a comfortable amount for you to pick it up, however much that is. And then yeah, just keep matching it to the same length as the previous section, and that will just make sure that you've got really uniform layers throughout the whole back. And then if you can imagine, when you do the other side, if you're really careful as well with making sure that it matches perfectly to the previous section every single time, the layers will be symmetrical, as long as that first initial slice that you did down the middle of your head, as long as that's symmetrical, the whole haircut will be symmetrical. once you finish both sides, just take out all the clips and brush through your hair, and then you can check that the layers are like the right length by just pulling random pieces of your hair from symmetrical points either side and bringing them up and seeing if they match. And if they're the same length, then you don't need to do anything. If they're not quite the same length, you just need to obviously trim the longer side however much you need to make sure that it matches the shorter side. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then as a final step, just to blend the back layers into the front layers, I took a section that incorporated a bit of the hair from the back and a bit of the hair from in front of my ear, and I just pulled that out to make a layer, and I just cut off any straggly pieces that looked like they weren't the same length. And that just means it's going to have like a lot more cohesion from the front of the haircut to the back of the haircut, because you don't want there to be like a really obvious change in length of layer. So that's just like a nice final step to make sure that everything looks all nice and blended together. But yeah, that's literally it. It's actually not that hard. It's kind of fiddly and it takes a little bit of getting used to holding the hair in those positions. But it's actually quite foolproof, and as long as you're following your guides really clearly, you should be okay. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, so now the next step is to blow dry my hair. And then once it's all dry, I can see how it's actually sitting, and there might be some parts that are like sitting a little bit heavy or weighty. And so then I'll just go through section by section and start like thinning it out a little bit, which is just gonna like blend and soften the whole look. Even though obviously these are very, very chunky layers, so it's never gonna be super blended, but I'm gonna like try and blend it as much as possible. I'm out of breath from doing that. Jesus, I'm so excited. Okay, I'm gonna go dry my hair. Yeah, I'm gonna go and blow dry my hair, but I'm gonna post that as a totally different video because otherwise it's just going to be a very, very long video. So if you want to see how I blow dry this hair, then I'll put the link to that in the description. Okay, so this is the finished result now that it's all dry. I'm obsessed with this haircut. It's a bit dark. I'm really, really happy with how it looks. I'm loving the blow dry as well. I also did film this blow dry, so if you want to see how I blow dried my hair, I'll link that video in the description or something. But yeah, this is the cut. So this is the side, this side, and then the back. I actually don't think I need to remove any weight. I wasn't sure if I was going to want to go through and kind of like thin it out a little bit, but actually, because of the type of layers that these are, I like how they're sitting kind of chunky and heavy, and I feel like if it was too wispy, it would look too like fluffy almost. But this is kind of, I'm happy with it basically at the moment, so I'm not going to remove any of the weight. My hair is super thick, so I'd say even if you've got really thick hair, you don't need to remove the weight, because I'm not going to. And obviously if your hair's on the finer side, then you probably definitely don't need to. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with this. But anyway, yeah, this is the finished look. I hope that you found this video helpful. Hope you learned something. Hope you like the haircut, because I do. And yeah, leave me a comment if you've got any questions or anything like that. Please like the video if you found it helpful, because it really does help my channel. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!